So I went to Worlds this past year and I lost in the most just sad fashion, right? I learned a lot from it and I think it was necessary. Do you have like anything, it could be athletically, it could be like life, just like anything that like just sucked. It was an absolute failure, but you
This
took
weekend?
this weekend, like you took a lot away from it. Yeah.
You just mean like in general, like in life?
Yeah, that
Or-
like you took something away from it that just changed your, I don't know, your outlook on specific things you do or, you know, where you're headed.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't athletically. It was like, I think a few life situations where I was at rock bottom, and it was just like, I mean, one of them was not having my own place to live while I was in Canada and sleeping on a couch in the kitchen. And another one was hiding out in the closet when I was married in a bad relationship and locking myself in the closet because that's where it was safe. And another one was living paycheck to paycheck coming out of that divorce, not knowing if like I'd have money to buy groceries because I had to buy dog food. And those are defining moments where you're just like, okay, like I've been through worse. I can get through this too. And you learn to just count on yourself that it's like, regardless of any situation that I am, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, like I'm going to pull myself out of this. And you learn to be comfortable with disparity, and you learn to be comfortable with just absolute hopelessness, because it's like, you know what? No. Like I've been in the dark before and I always find the light again.
How does somebody, I mean, I know it must be extremely complicated. How does somebody get out of an abusive relationship?
For me, I just didn't go home one day. And, you know, and like, and that wasn't the only one. It was just like, it was a recurring thing in my life. And honestly, it showed me that it's like, okay, why do I keep ending up in these situations? You know, like, what is it about me?
You've been in more than one relationship that was that way?
Yeah. And I think that was like the wake up call for me. And it was just like, finally, it was like, no.
Was that like anything you saw as a kid or anything like that? Or just.
No, like, you know, like my parents fought, but, you know, like my dad would never lay a hand on my mom, you know, it was just, I didn't know my own value or my own worth. And me being such a strong, independent person, I challenge someone who's not strong and independent, right? And I found myself constantly in relationships where they were trying to control me. And I can't be controlled. And so what happens, you know, with a weaker individual, you know, they don't know how to show their strength except to beat somebody down. And you know, like in high school, being in like
I just can't imagine. Like I can't even. I cannot imagine a scenario of feeling that way. You know, of being abused like that. I also can't even fathom hitting a female. I can't fathom like child abuse or anything like that. So if I watch TV and that comes on, it would be great to like learn more about it, but I can't watch it. I'm like, this is just too. It's too. I have my own kids and stuff like that, and it's just too much for me to even handle. So the fact that you're able to pull yourself through some of that is awesome, because now you're on the other side of it and you can speak to people and you probably help thousands and thousands of people. I think it's awesome that you're able to have the strength to pull yourself out of it. How were you able to kind of pull through some of that?
You learn to just say no. And as easy and as simple as that is, it's the hardest thing in the world, because you get to the point where you accept that that's just your life, you know. And, you know, the biggest criticism I hear from, you know, the ignorant public is that, oh, well, she waited too long to come out about it, so it must be made up. Like, as someone who has been through rape, as someone who has been through physical abuse, you don't feel comfortable or confident coming out with that, because you hold so much shame that that happened to me. And it infuriates me when people are like, oh, well, she waited too long to come out. And I'm like, you have no idea the mental battle and fortitude that she had to muster to even come out at all. And it takes so much time, and eventually you just have to say enough is enough.
Does it even register exactly what has happened? Or do you kind of like justify it?
It takes time. And honestly, like it was just, I acted on instinct. And it was just like, I have dogs with me. And it was just like, I'm not going home. And I literally, it was a coworker, and she was looking at me, and I guess like I looked petrified. And she was like, I'm not going to let you go home, judging by your body language right now. And I grabbed some overnight stuff, called my parents. I was like, and that was like the biggest like ego, like swallowing moment. It's like, I'm coming home. And it was the best thing for me. You know, like doing that, it was just like a breath of fresh air that I was like, oh my God, like I'm out. Like I don't have to go back to that. And it was regaining that ground and regaining my life back, that it's like, oh my gosh, like I do have control over my life. Like I don't have to accept that as my reality. And I think that was the biggest lesson of just knowing that you have control over your life. You're giving them control by not doing anything, by not saying anything. And it's like, and it's not always safe to stand up to them, but you can always walk away. And I think it's just knowing that you can. And regardless if you think you don't have anywhere to go, there are countless outlets that you can look up. There are countless people who will be willing to help you. And it's just learning to swallow that shame and swallow that ego and be like, you know what, for my betterment, for my longevity, I need to step out.
Did you have any like friends or other friends other than this woman that you just mentioned that like ever did try to do this for you, or like maybe, I know, encourage you to leave, but maybe at the time you just weren't ready?
I was very private. So actually nobody knew about anything going on. And even this friend, like she didn't know anything that was going on. I never spoke about it, never told anybody. Even through like our whole separation process, I never mentioned it. And
You never told your parents?
No, never said anything to them. Like they had speculations, but I think the best part was that they never pressured me either. Like they were like, you'll tell us when you're ready. And when I finally like felt comfortable to talk about things, to be able, like strong enough to even talk about things, it was just like, no, all of this happened. And even now, like I'll start to remember things that like I had pushed back so far in my memory that like I forgot even happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I endured that. And you know, it's crazy like to realize that it's like almost like an out of body experience, because you go into like that type of traumatic event, like most of the time they're not going to talk about it. Most of the time they're not going to share that, and they're just going to internalize it. And you have to learn to study body language and study how they act around men and how they act around like other female companions. Like if they're a little bit like, oh, well, maybe she'll look too deep inside me. Like then it's like, okay, there's something going on with her. And I think I've become hypersensitive to other women, and I can pinpoint as soon as she walks in the room. And it's really helped me. Like, I mean, I've had neighbors I've had to call the cops on because I knew something was going on. Wow. And I had to wait till I heard something to be able to call the cops. And it was just like, because I knew it, like just seeing her every day, I was like, something's going on. And it's like, it makes you hyper aware. And I'm so thankful for that. Like, I'm so thankful that I have the ability now to reach out to those women and to reach them on a level that they understand, because I've been there.
Have you had to get help for it?
Yeah. Like it's taken years for me to be able to be comfortable to talk about it and to even repair my relationship with men. So like when I first came out of that, like I was super bitter, like super, like I came across as like super tough, like the ice queen, you know, like don't get close to Charity, like she'll rip your heart out. Like, you know, like, you know, and nobody knew what had actually happened. You know, they just thought that I was just super like abrasive, and they didn't understand that I was just protecting myself because I was so tender and broken on the inside. And it took a lot of consoling actually from my physical therapist that I was studying under. And he mentored me, and he used to do like Reiki and stuff like that. And he just like every day would just pour love and light into me. And then, you know, repairing my relationship with my dad and my mom, that helped a ton. It was like, honestly, it wasn't me going to therapy, but it was therapy. And it was just learning to communicate and have relationships again that were healthy relationships.
Yeah. To somebody who hasn't had these experiences, they hear about someone in an abusive relationship, and they're just like, why do you keep going home? Like, just leave. How were you able to find strength to, you know, like you said, just not go home? Like, I'm sure you had your dogs with you, which was great, but I'm sure there was something at home that you were attached to that you were kind of afraid that you maybe might not ever see again, or, just because like you hear people say like, oh, I've put too much time into this relationship to leave now, or I've done this, or I've done that, I've invested this and that. Basically, how did you find the strength to just not go home?
I think it was just, honestly, it was an impulsive decision on my part. I wish I had a better explanation, or like an escape route for someone. But
maybe some thought was developed in your head of like, this just isn't this is not working for me anymore. I cannot live this way anymore.
I think that's all it was. It was just like, I cannot go the rest of my life living like this, and I'm either going to commit suicide or I'm just not going to be myself anymore. And it was like, I either lose myself to this world or I lose myself completely. And that thought scared me more than the uncertainty of my future. And it was just like, I would rather jump off this cliff right now than lose myself completely.
Do you have any advice for like, because there are probably a lot of like people that are friends and they know like maybe they're like their cousin or I don't know, one of their friends is getting abused and they don't necessarily know what to do because they can't just, do you think that they should just continuously talk to that individual or just be there for that individual, or what do you think they should do? Being
there and being consistent. So it's like the friends that were there for me and that were just consistent, they were just stable. We're still friends, they never imposed. They never forced my hand. They never made me feel like I didn't have an option. And they were the ones that were there for me when I was moving, when I needed, friends. And like one of my girlfriends, like she was there at my new place like every night to make sure I was okay. And, and it wasn't like she gave me an option. It was like, hey, I'm coming by. It was like, great, and she invaded my space. And I needed that because like I'm so introverted anyways. And like she forced me to open up myself and just learn to like live again and to be comfortable living in that space. And honestly, like having her there for me through that, like that time of just adjusting was huge. And it's like, sometimes like they're not gonna want you to be there for them, and you just kind of have to be there for them and just be like, no, I'm here, and we don't have to talk about anything, but I'm just gonna be there, and we're gonna eat, or I'm gonna clean your house. Like I'd have friends come over and they'd clean my house for me, and it was just like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, just sit down, whatever. And like they didn't give me an option; they were just there for me. And like having those types of friends, like it was just priceless. It was priceless.
Yeah, that's what I usually recommend for people is to, just if you are a friend and you see something like that going on, somebody's abusing drugs or they're being abused themselves, or they're all you can really do, and the drug abuse thing is a way different animal, but all you can do is just really tell someone like, I'm here for you. Like whenever you're ready, because when you kind of lend yourself out to somebody, yeah, I guess even in your situation, it would be the same thing. If I keep telling you like I'm here for you, I'm ready to help you if you don't want the help, then I can't really do much for you. But whenever you're ready, and I think that's the key, is just to tell somebody, look, I'm here for you. I got your back. However I can help. If I need to come over and do your dishes, if I need to mow your lawn or walk your dog, or like if I need to do something, I'll do it. But then again, not putting too much pressure on the person to maybe reveal all of what's going on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think just the company is what builds that security for them and that trust, because they don't feel like they have to reveal anything. But at the same time, you get so comfortable with that person and there's that trust established that it starts giving you hope.
What was the worst of it? I mean, you said you like locked yourself in the closet. Like what? That sounds fucking crazy to me. I can't fathom that. I mean, this is a physical abuse, I'm imagining.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of things, and of course, like towards the end of it, like I wasn't perfect either, because you become so bitter and traumatized that you start lashing out too, and it just became just one toxic mess. And But yeah, I think when you my jaw still unhinges to this day, I've received my my share of hard knocks. But you learn to take a hit, and with him it wasn't even necessarily it the physical was something that it eventually escalated to, but it was verbal and it was emotional, and the physical shocked me, and it was just like I didn't expect that. And that's when I was like, I got to get out, because I've been down this road before and there's no coming back from this. Once you cross that line, there is no hope of return. And it's like, being in
That's something people should understand then, huh?
Yes, absolutely. And it's like, once that line is crossed, you can go to therapy, or you can work through verbal and emotional abuse, because, obviously there's something in that person's life that has made them that way, and they've got demons that they need to work on. And I was so sympathetic, and I was so empathic towards him. And it's like, he's had a hard life, I was so forgiving. And then once that line is crossed, it's like, oh no, I got to get out now, ASAP. And, and signs are like, if that happens, and then the next day they act like it didn't happen. And then it's like, oh no, you came at me, or you attacked me, and the total denial of it. And I was just like, oh, you're a psycho. Got it. And it was like, and I started processing all of these things. So it's like, it helps, I consider myself smarter than average, but it's like, it helps being like, okay, I've seen this before. I've been down this route before. You're not acknowledging your actions, which means that you weren't yourself in that instant, which means this is going to happen again. And, someone that can't acknowledge that they're doing these things and they're in complete denial, it's a psychological mishap, where they're really they know it's there, but it's they're not recognizing it in themselves because it's so bad and they don't want to recognize that it's there. And when you're in those types of relationships, you see the other partner, it could be females like this too, and they make excuses for them. Oh, she had too much to drink, or he just had too much to drink, or he just wasn't like himself, and they make excuses for them. And I think understanding that, no, once that line's crossed, it will be crossed again, and you need to get out as soon as possible, because that person doesn't even realize what they're doing because they're not willing to.